friends, my name is Dave, and in this tutorial we're going to talk about if statements. If statements. If statements are a way for your program to make a decision. So if you need the program to make a decision, an if statement may be the way to go. A lot of times you want to check to see if something is true, and if it is true, do this, right? If it's not true, do something else. For example, if you want to check to see if the user's password is correct, if they've typed in the right password, if the password is correct, if it's true, then log them in. If it's not true, then tell them to kick rocks, right? So that's one scenario where we might need to use an if statement. So an if statement is a way to make a decision. You check to see if something's true. If it is true, you do this, and if it's not true, you may do something else. So I have a form app, right? This is a form app, not a console app. It's a form app. I name mine if statements. You're welcome to name yours whatever you want. And so I have this form app, and in Solution Explorer, I double click on form1.cs. Just double click on that, not on program.cs. We want to double click on form1.cs, form1.cs, and that will open up this this form, right, in the document window. So now we have a form in our document window. So let's spend just a couple minutes getting this set up. I'm going to click on Toolbox. By the way, you can also hold down Control and Alt and hit X, and that'll bring up the toolbox. So Control Alt X will bring up the toolbox. Or you just click on the tab there, or you may already have yours docked. I'm going to go ahead and dock mine for the time being. So I'm going to drag a label and a button. One label and one button. So I'm going to look for the label, and see the label here. I'm just going to drag it over. You can also double click either way. And now I need a button. So one label, one button. I'm going to drag this button over here. Alright, so one label, one button. And now I'm going to go ahead and auto hide the toolbox again. So I'm going to click on push pin and just auto hide that toolbox. And I'm just going to click off. You can just click off anywhere if it's on auto hide and you want the window to go away or the panel to go away. Just click off. All right. So now I want the properties panel. And by the way, you can always hit F4. F4 will bring up the properties panel. You can always right click also. You can right click and select properties. F4 will bring up the properties panel. So let's go ahead and dock the properties panel for now. So I'm going to select label, and I'm going to go to the top, and I've got this selected, this alphabetical. You could also categorize these properties. This button here will categorize them, right? And this will set them up alphabetically. So I'm just going to set them up alphabetically for now. And in the name, look for the name property, and just double click in here. Alright, the name property. I'm just going to double click in here, type in LBL and message, right? LBL message. LBL, this is a convention. It starts, the label name starts with LBL. That way when you access it in your code, you just type in LBL, and this will show, it'll list all the labels right there. So that also, when you see this in your code, you know that that's a label. You see LBL, that indicates, hey, that's a label, right? So it's just a convention. If you're not accessing this within the code, then this is kind of pointless, actually. Alright, so we're going to access this label through the code. Right, we're going to access this label through the code. So I want to name this label. That way I know what's what, right? So I'm going to do the same thing with this button. And with the button, I'm going to name it BTN. And we'll just name it check, right? Just check, that's fine. And okay, so let's also change the text on the button. And we scroll down to, in the properties panel, look for text, and just double click here, and just going to type in check weather, and note that the text is too long to fit, so I'm just going to use these handles. You can use these handles to resize the button. So I'm just going to resize this button, so check weather, right? And we'll just leave that text there. That's fine for now. We're going to change that within the code, right? So I have one button, I have one label, and now what I want to do is I want to double click on this button. I'm going to double click on this button. Just click, and that sets up, and now we're in the code behind. This is the code behind, right? And this is form1.cs. It's the code behind. Let's look at Solution Explorer. We see this is the code behind. This is the code behind file. This is this is the design, right? And we can toggle back and forth right here. So let's go back, and we can see this is a click event, and it's may not be clear to you what a click event is at this point. Don't worry about it. Basically, it just means when somebody clicks on that button, it's going to run, it's going to execute everything that's within these curly brackets. Everything in this code block is going to execute every time someone clicks on that button. So that's all it means, right? So we have a click event, right? So let's go back to the code. So now I'm going to type in the code, right? And by the way, you can always hit F7. F7 will take you to the code behind. F7 will take you to the code behind, right? You can right click, view code, or F7, right? Okay, so I have some code. Let's look at this. I've just declared a variable like we've done before, and here I've called a member of the string type empty. This just means empty string, just basically a blank, just like a blank string, just empty, right? That's all. And you can do this, or you could do the two empty quotes, right? That's the same thing. Same thing. You'll see this a lot. It's just two ways to do the exact same thing. So that's an empty string, and Control Z. So let's do it this way. Actually, one book I read recommended doing it this way, so we'll stick with this. Okay, so I'm just assigning it an empty string. I'm just putting an empty string in there right now because we don't know what we want to put in it, right? So we're just going to put an empty string in there. So I have another variable is raining, and so a Boolean type, right? So now I'm going to use an if statement. I'm going to type in if, and then tab, right? if tab. Let's do that one more time. if tab. This is a little shortcut that Visual Studio, one of the things that Visual Studio does to make your life easier, right? And you see it just has this default of true, right? And it's highlighted, so I can just go ahead and start typing. I don't have to delete that. Just go ahead and start typing, and it'll overwrite that. So I'm going to put in my conditional test, and I'm just going to type in type in ISR, and it brought up. If you use arrows, IntelliSense popped up, and it has, you see the yellow that indicates that it's selected. Once it's selected, just hit enter, right? Just hit enter, and now I'm just going to hit enter again. I'm just going to hit enter, and it'll put me within the curly brackets. Enter, and there you go. So you don't have to click in here, or you just, once you type that in, just enter, and it'll take you to put you in it'll put the caret in between the curly brackets right there. So so that's just kind of a neat feature of Visual Studio. So if I have my conditional test, and you can put any conditional test, and you can combine them, with the logical operators, whatever as many as you need. You can use logical or, you can use any conditional test here. It's all going to result in true or false. Every conditional test, no matter how long it is, no matter, it doesn't matter, it's always going to result in true or false, right? So this is either going to be true or it's going to be false. There's no zero gray area. It's true or false, one or the other. If this is true, then we're going to assign that LBL, right? That label. Message is what I named it. I just typed in LBL, and boom, there you go. It popped up. It's already selected. And I need the property text. These are its members, right? And we're going to talk about members in another video, so if that's not clear, don't worry about it. Just introducing you to the idea. So I'm using my arrows, I'm looking for the text property, and there it is. Remember the little hand with whatever that is, that indicates a property, right? So this is the text property, and that's what we want. And it holds, let's hover over to see what it holds. It holds a string, right? It holds a string, so I have to put in a string value, right? I'm just going to double click on message, and actually, let's go ahead. Let's type in. Let's just type in a literal string right now. Let's just type in the literal string. Yep, changed my mind again. Let's do this. Let's put in a message right here. Now I'm going to put in a literal string. And it's going to say take an umbrella. It's raining, right? So now I'm going to take this, copy that, and put it right here. Okay, so now this is going to assign this string, this little string, to this variable that I've named message. And here I'm going to take this variable, what it's going to take out whatever's in that box, whatever's in that that variable, that box, take it out and assign it to this, right? And this holds a string. I can hover over this to see that it holds a string, right? So, and this is of string type, right? I've declared this as a string, right? So let's see what happens. Let's go ahead and run this. And you can hit save all and save it if you like. It's a good idea. Also, every time you run it, it saves for you. So I'm just going to go ahead and click on the green button, run it. Okay, so I have this window, and when I click on this button, everything that's within this in this code block should run, right? Everything that's within the code block should run, should execute, right? So I'm going to click here, click on this button, check whether, and all this code executed, and you can see it checked this condition, right? It checked to see if that's true or false. If it's true, then do what's in this code block. Do what's in this code block. If this condition is true, if this condition is true, is it either true or false? If it's true, then do what's in this code block. If it's not true, then don't do what's in this code block, right? So you can see it changed the text in the label to my string, right? It took, I assigned this string, literal, to this variable called message, and then here I assigned this variable message to this property, right? This text property. So it took whatever was in that variable, that box, took it out, and assigned it to this, basically, right? That's not really a technical explanation of what's going on behind the scenes, but it's just to give you the idea, right? Okay, so now I've changed this boolean to false. So now is raining is false, right? It's going to equal false. And by the way, this is the same as this. And actually, I should have started with this. So is raining is equal to true. This is the long way. I started off with the short way and the shortcut. Is raining, you're saying, is this equal to true? Is that equal to true? Right? So let's go ahead and run this. And I've changed this to false. Okay, so now we run it and we see nothing happens, right? Nothing happens because now this condition is false. So I'm saying, does this variable equal true? Does it equal true? Is it equal to true? And in this case, it's not. It's equal to false, right? So this is the long way to this. Let's stick with the long way. Let me show you the short way again. So this is the short way. Just such a common thing in coding that they just give you the shortcut. So this is all you have to do. But the long way just makes it clearer what's going on. So let's stick with that for the time being. Okay, so we've told it what to do if the condition is true, but what happens if the condition is false, right? And here we can use an else statement. An else statement just says, if this is true, do execute this, whatever's in this code block, if that's true, if that condition is true. If it's not true, otherwise do this, right? And you can use the tab here to type in ELS tab, and it'll give you the curly brackets and put your caret in between the curly brackets. So let's go ahead and I'm just going to copy this, and we're going to put some more text up here, and let's say take the dog to the park, right? So if it's true, if this is true, if this condition is true, then do this. Otherwise, else, do this, right? So let's run this again. Okay, so now when we click it, check this condition. That condition is false. So it executed what's in the else block, right? So now it assigned this string literal to this variable, and in turn this got assigned to this property, the text property. Okay, so that's if you only have two possible values. What if you have multiple? What if they're, instead of raining or not raining, what if you have, you want to check to see if it's sunny, if it's raining, and if it's cold, right? So you have multiple things to check. So let's do this. Click on Toolbox. Just open up your toolbox, and we're looking for the combo box. Combo box. I'm going to drag the combo box over here. Drag this combo box, and we could use properties here, or you can just click on this called a smart tag. Smart tag. Just click on that and edit items. Right. So I have my combo box. I've just dragged a combo box over here. Clicked on this smart tag and edit items, and I'm just going to type in values, right? So I've just typed in 3 values: sunny, raining, cold. Okay, I've typed in 3 values: sunny, raining, cold, in this string collection editor, right? It just pops up. Click OK, so just edit items, and this comes up, and you just type in your values here. And this is kind of a static way of doing it, but that's okay for now. So click OK. Okay, so now I have 3 possible values. I have 3 possible values to choose from, or to check, right? So let's go ahead. I'm going to comment this out. I'm just going to comment this out for now. Okay, so I've typed in some more code here, and I recommend pausing and typing this in your own program. So let's take a look at this. Right, I've already declared this message variable up here. I've just dropped an empty string in there, right? String.empty, or you can use the empty double quotes. Okay, so the combo box, the property that we use here is select item. Use this select item, and that's going to give me whatever happens to be selected. So you got this combo box. You can select. We have 3 options in this case. Whichever one you select. Once you select it, you can use this select item to get whatever happens to be selected. Whichever one is selected, right? And once we get that, then we use this to string a method to convert it to a string, right? So we have to. This only takes a string. So we have to convert it to a string in order to assign it to this variable, right? So we're going to get whatever selected, convert it to a string, and assign it to this variable called message, which holds a string, only holds a string, right? So now we're going to add some else if statements, and you can do the same thing with else if, the tab. So let's type in else if. And try that one more time. We need the else if. All right, else if. Then tab, and that'll give you the parentheses and the curly brackets. Okay, I just realized I neglected to use the curly brackets. If you only have one statement, you don't need the curly brackets. That's if there's only one statement. There's only one statement. But I recommend that you use the curly brackets anyway. Just go ahead and use the curly brackets anyway. That way it's clear to you what's going on. This is the if code block, else if code block. So go ahead and use the curly brackets. I recommend that you do that. So now you can see each block has its own set of curly brackets, right? And I have two else if statements. So else if, you don't have one if statement, you don't have one else statement, but you can have as many else if statements as you need, right? So in this case I have two else if statements, and it's basically the same as the if. You have a conditional test, and you can combine, you can have as many conditional tests as you need. You'll use the logical operators to add additional conditional tests. Say that 3 times fast. However many you need. So just use your logical operators if you need more conditional tests. And you can put any conditional tests here. You could call a method that returns true or false. You could put a Boolean variable that holds true or false. So you can do any sort of comparison test as long as it ends up with true or false, right? So it has to end up with either true or false. The result has to be true or false. The result's got to be true or false, right? So basically what happens is it checks this to see if this is true. If this is true, then it's going to do this. And once it does that, it's going to skip over the rest of it. It's going to skip the rest of it. But if this is not true, if this is false, then it's going to go to the next else if. Check if that's true. And if that's true, right, if this is true, then it's going to execute this, right? If it's not true, it's going to go to the next else if statement, right? And if that's true, it's going to execute this. If it's not true, then it's going to do the else. It's going to do the else. If all these are false, if everything's false, then it'll do the else, right? So if all 3 of these conditions are false, then it's going to do whatever's in. It's going to execute what's in the else block. If either one of these are true, then it's going to exit. It's going to skip over the rest of it and the else block. Right? So if one of those conditions is true, then it just executes that, and that's it. If all of them are false, it runs what's in the else block, right? So it's only going to do one of these. Only one of these are going to execute, right? So if the message equals raining, right? And remember, we're getting whatever selected, whatever the user selects. Say they select raining, and then we convert that to the string, and that string gets assigned to this variable message, and then we check to see if this equals raining. If it does, then we execute this, which just assigns this string to this variable message, right? So we just reassign that variable, right?